What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to this Anfield Agenda Derby preview. I'm joined by the legends that are Ian Brewster and Leon Blanche, and I've just recorded my part of the preview with with Leon, so I'm going to come to Ian first. How much, buddy, are you looking forward to this on Saturday?
Big time, especially after last night's result. So I'm really looking forward to it. We're getting in there with some form of confidence on the back end of the result last night. So I'm looking forward to it.
Apart from that, Leon, Everton, as you said when we did a little preview, coming off the back of a couple of defeats as well, an unexpected one at the hands of Fulham, and probably an expected one. I mean, most of us, the way City are playing, expect a loss these days. But yeah, I think it's come at the right time for us, Leon. I've been saying this all week. I feel like we're going to be up for this and raring to go. I'm full of optimism.
I think we've got to be ready to go, and we've got to try and get our home form rectified, because it has been our Achilles heel as of late. And that will hurt the boys. It'll hurt Jurgen, because the record prior to this run was just absolutely phenomenal. 68 games or something unbeaten at Anfield. So they know how to win at Anfield, and they've got to just get that feeling back. And coming off the back of a huge victory in Europe, it will breed belief that they can take to the field on Saturday night at 5:30 and get the job done. Everton, on the other hand, as you said, City game, they weren't really expected to get much from that. They would have been hoping maybe to get a point. But the real poor performance was against Fulham, when it looked like Everton, who have done that at times this season. I remember they played Newcastle. They were dreadful. Against weaker opposition, similar to Liverpool, on occasions, both teams have not performed anywhere near their capability. So this is a derby. Liverpool were wrongfully denied a victory when the two sides faced at Goodison Park. VAR was an absolute joke. Two horrific challenges. We lost Thiago, we lost Big Virgil, and everything that could have went wrong for us in that derby, but we were still the better side. And we've got to take that belief, the performance in a derby. Form really goes out the window, but I think we needed the win in midweek to give us a chance of winning this game on Saturday.
One thing, Ian, and I don't know if you've had a chance to look on social media today, mate, but there was no ALISSON and no Kelleher pictured in the training photographs today, which has, of course, launched the whole level of hysteria amongst our fan base. And I've got to be honest, mate, I don't know what the situation is as of the time we're going live doing this right now. I'm trying to figure it out. But for you ahead of this one, mate, I look into the starting lineup and we'll assume that we'll have Kelleher or ALISSON, one of the lads fit. One person, and I know we big him up a lot when we talk, and I'm going to do it again because he was fantastic at midweek. My boy Curtis Jones, he has to start this one for me.
100%. The boy's on fire. He hasn't let Jurgen down. I thought he was exceptional in the week. What I love about him, and I've said it before, he plays with no fear. And sometimes you need that. You know, he's always willing to accept the ball in tight spaces. He keeps the ball moving. He doesn't slow the play down. He's always looking to go forward, always looking to open it up. And we need that. You know, as well as the industry in midfield, sometimes you want that bit of creativity. And so far, he's doing a job, as far as I'm concerned.
I would go further to say he's doing a job. I think he's almost the go-to in that midfield at this moment in time. I mean, he's phenomenal. I mean, to think that he really made his breakthrough, obviously, with the screamer he scored against Everton in the FA Cup, captain in Liverpool, the youngest player to ever captain Liverpool. He is just gone from strength to strength. And I know people are probably sick of us lauding the lad, but he deserves it. He really is just, to me, the next generation of our midfield. He's phenomenal. I can't speak highly enough of the guy.
No, 100%. I'm with you on that one, Craig. Definitely. As you say, possibly, yeah, go-to. Answering your original question, he has to start for me. He has to start. I can't see who else he would start before him. Now he's got to be one of the first people on the sheet with regards to that midfield, as far as I'm concerned.
Leon,
you said, scoring that goal for the under-23s, mentally, that's something to go on as well.
And it was a belt of a goal. Let's not forget that. He really did stick at top ends.
Yeah. If I remember rightly, Pickford apparently said good cross.
I don't know about you, Leon, but I wouldn't change too much from the team that Klopp will put out in the Champions League during the week. I'd pretty much expect that to be the 11 if ALISSON is fit that takes the field on Saturday at 5:30.
Yeah, look, I mean, just in relation to Curtis Jones, we all know what a superb talent he is. I think we've got to be mindful too, and I'm kind of go to the situation with Pep and Foden. That, you know, Pep managed Phil Foden exceptionally well during the early parts of his Man City career, and Phil Foden was learning from the likes of David Silva, from the Kevin De Bruynes of this world. So for this Saturday, I think Jones probably will start, but I think what Jurgen is doing is minding him. And it is frustrating for fans. We're watching him get 60 minutes and he's coming off and he's probably been the best player. But I think what Jurgen is doing is the right thing. The one thing I've been super impressed with Jones that he's added to that, as Ian alluded to earlier, he's never afraid to take the ball in tight spaces. He wants it all the time. His work rate off the ball, for me, has actually gone on to a different level now. And he's actually fully implementing what Jurgen wants from him as a footballer. Jurgen wants you to be positive on the ball, but obviously you've got to track. You've got to put in the work when you don't have the football. And if you don't do both, you will not be a Jurgen Klopp starter. And that's absolutely proven. And I think what Curtis Jones has taken on board this season, he's going to be on the next level. I think Liverpool have found a local boy who's going to be at the club for the rest of his career, touch wood. And I think that's another reason why I think he'll get the nod for Saturday, because he's a local boy. You want him and Trent in the starting 11 to show, not that these players need to be shown what it means, but I think when you're a homegrown lad, especially in a Merseyside derby, it just means that little bit more.
Ian, one player who we've got to see a little bit of and had a good game during midweek was Ozun Kabak. How have you found his time at Liverpool, and what do you make of the deal that the club done in the way they've got the loan with an option and not the obligation to buy? For me, I think it's genius, if I'm being honest.
Well, that's Edwards at his best, isn't it, really? We know what he's about. He's the man when it comes to sorting out deals. That's brilliant the way he's structured it. As you say, we get a little peek before, so we can decide whether we want to or not. So that's all good. I actually think he came in for a bit of unfair criticism for his first game, when everyone said, "Oh, hard game and that." Because up until they scored their goals, for me, he was having a decent game. I think it was the whole back line that didn't play well, the way we conceded those goals, not him per se. I think he played well yesterday. He did, I remember reading about him. He loves to tackle. He did get booked. Something we would have to look for in the future, just for him to just maybe not go diving in so much. But he looks composed. What I liked about him was when he got the ball, he wasn't just looking to always pass it sideways. He was always looking to try and push it into the midfield, which I liked, which is good, because sometimes people get overrated with these stats about we had 60-70%. And when you look at some of these passes, half of it's just around the back four. It's not getting anywhere, But for me, I like players that like to pass the ball between the lines, and he looks to do that, which I was pleased about.
And again, Leon, we spoke about Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Looks like he's going to be back for Everton for this game, and we know firsthand what a threat this guy is. And if you're Jurgen Klopp and you're sitting down with Henderson and Ozun Kabak now, you said when we did our little preview, they don't have the height to match Dominic Calvert-Lewin. So what can we do to try and keep this guy quiet?
Yeah, look, he's had a brilliant season. He started off like a house on fire, went through a little bit of a dip in form, but he's come right back. He's scoring goals, and he's always involved in Everton's goals. He's not just a handful in the air. He's a very physical guy. He's very quick. He links up a lot of the play, and he is, in my opinion, he's the man we've got to really keep a very close eye on. Kabak will probably be tasked with trying to stay close to him, especially from set pieces, because that's what Everton are going to try and hurt us with. And Ancelotti will have a plan. He's a master tactician. It's going to be a really tough game for Liverpool. Everton are not going to be easy on Saturday, but in Calvert-Lewin, they always seem to have an out ball. And when, with his pace and with his power, he can hold the ball up to bring the likes of Rodriguez into the game, to get a Richarlison into the game. And in fairness, when Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison and Rodriguez have started as a three, they've done exceptionally well, because they really do complement each other. Look, we've all spoke about Phillips on this podcast. I'm not saying Jurgen Klopp is going to do it for Saturday, but the one thing about Phillips you can bet your bottom dollar on is long balls are his forte. and crosses are his forte. So it's going to be interesting. I think Jurgen will probably stick with the same 11, barring if I don't think Fabinho's going to be fit. I think Keita will be in the squad. He'll be on the bench. But it's just something we are a bit susceptible. I worry about Calvert-Lewin up against this current Liverpool back four. We don't have a dominant header of the ball in there. And it is a worry for me going into Saturday's game.
For you, Ian, will you class him as the danger man for Everton? Obviously, we can touch on some good players they have there. Andre Gomes, Leon touched on, James Rodriguez. You know, but when the chips have been down, when their backs have been against the wall, Calvert-Lewin has delivered for them.
100%. Listen, his game has come on tenfold. Years ago, I remember I used to watch him, and you always felt that he was always there on the cusp. And then when you had Lukaku there, you had others, you always felt that, you had Tosin come. You felt that he was always going to be the fall guy. Now he's got the absolute confidence of the manager. You know, when you read things about him, you've got Duncan Ferguson putting his arm around him, giving him advice. And if anything, he plays like a Duncan Ferguson. You know, he holds the ball up, he attacks the ball in the air, like Leon was saying. So, yeah, he's definitely a threat and the 1-2 watch, I would say. But it's not, like Leon said, it's not just that, it's his work rate. You know, he runs the channels and he's always involved. He's an outlet for somebody. Our back four, right, need to be, in tune at the weekend, because he's like a pest. He runs everywhere. So we have to keep an eye on him. It's a good shout about Phillips coming in for potentially Kabak. I could see that as well. But yes, Jurgen, I believe, will have to have somebody on him to, for the aerial challenge. I don't think it's a case of zonal, just, whoever's there and pick him up. I think someone particularly needs to pick him up.
Obviously, we're all working off the assumption that Calvert-Lewin makes the starting 11, by the way. It seems to be touch and go at this moment in time, but, it's always best to think, I suppose, worst case scenario from our point of view, because, look, we'll all be delighted if Dominic Calvert-Lewin doesn't start. Fair to say, Leon, that this is probably the biggest Premier League derby we've had in quite a while?
In respect to where the two clubs are in the table, yes. And in the current situation, both sides have got ambitions. Liverpool, unfortunately, now we've had to settle for a top four finish because that's the ultimate goal in the Premier League this season. We obviously want to try and finish second if we can, and that's still well within our grasps. And Everton, they had those games in hand and they didn't pick up anything. So now there's a 3-point difference in the table. We've played a game more. So if we can beat Everton, it does give us that little bit of a cushion. 6 points clear, but it's a massive game. It really is a huge game, and we've got to forget about Europe, which I'm sure they will, because our Premier League form, let's be quite frank about it, it hasn't been good enough, and we need a big win at Anfield, and nothing better really than a Merseyside derby to try and re-kickstart your Premier League season, because I do believe on Tuesday night the Champions League does afford Liverpool the opportunity of winning matches. And I think if we get through this tie, which I fully expect us to do in Leipzig, I think this will help our Premier League form. Having this competition back, the European feeling of winning, I think can only benefit us in the Premier League.
Ian, I want to turn the attention to the front three, mate, for a couple of minutes. Our front three, Mane, Salah, Firmino. Mane obviously was coming back from a little knock. He's finding his way back to form, but I'm starting to see glimmers of hope here, buddy. I'm starting to see the old Firmino with that little setup for Mohamed Salah. We know Mo's a goal-scoring machine. There's never been any doubt about that. I mean, we're sitting here and we're talking about the danger of Calvert-Lewin and we're talking about James Rodriguez, but, they've an awful lot to be worrying about from their side as well.
Would you like to be, Craig?
Yes, buddy.
I'm sorry, I did say it right. Yeah. Yes.
You're probably just blinded by my natural beauty, Ian. It happens to the best of them.
Sorry, I didn't hear you say Ian. Me and Leon sitting there like, yeah, who's he talking about?
Yeah, who's he going?
I have been known to argue with myself from time to time. So.
No, yes, Firmino's showing glimpses, as you said, of his class. But like they say, class is permanent, isn't it? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, form is temporary. I thought Mo and Mane yesterday were fabulous. I thought they were brilliant. Back to what we know they're about. Every time they got the ball, they looked a threat. Yes, they've got. Listen, whether we're going through a rough patch or not, the fact that their name's on the team sheet, any team playing us will fear us, right? You don't become a bad front three overnight. Yes, you could go through spells. I think the reason. Sorry. Oh,
I think you were just hearing reverb.
Right.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah. At the end of the day, people always fear our front three. I think the problem we've had this season is because when all three of them were going through a bit of a slump, that's why everyone's starting to question individually. Oh, you're not doing your job. You're not doing this. You're not doing that. But it happens. They're human. We've set such high standards over the last couple of seasons that anything below that, people always question what's going on. And that is the thing, fickle fans, they forget. When we're on cloud nine and we're winning, we're the best thing since sliced bread, and people think it goes on forever. Unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. Other teams get better. We raise the standard to such that people are now trying to aspire to get to it. They've done. So I believe, for me, it's got to be a must-win game. Well, it is a must-win game as far as I'm concerned. A draw is no good for anyone. I feel, the best thing that happened for us was Everton losing against Fulham, because I didn't see that coming, to be honest with you. So like Leon said, they've got they're a game behind us, but yet, they're 3 points behind. So I believe we have to get a 6-point cushion on them, and we need to push, obviously, West Ham and Chelsea ahead of us.
Yeah, who thought we'd be sitting here, gents, talking about playing catch-up at West Ham, in all fairness, when the season began. And full credit to them. The league table never lies. You get there by merit. And one player, Leon, I wanted to talk about for a moment, who's had a bit of a hit-and-miss season, I think it's fair to say, is Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain. And I wanted to get your thoughts on what he could potentially maybe offer off the bench if we're looking for a late goal or something in the derby.
Yeah, and maybe just before I say about the Ox, just on Ian's point around our front three as well. From Tuesday night, watching that performance, they were running in behind. And it's the first time I've seen us get back to what made us so successful. Get in behind defences. With the power and with the speed we have, especially with the two boys, Mo and Mane and Bobby pulling the strings. And the midfield three, their head was lifted immediately when they got the ball on Tuesday night to hit that ball in behind. We're very good at that. Let's get back to that. In terms of the Ox, it has been stop-start. Do I see him making an impact off the bench? My honest opinion is I don't know. He hasn't really shown me, or I think Jurgen, that much this season. It has been a bit of a stop-start season for him. I would love to see the Ox come back to that level of form when he was starting in the middle three, when he was so full of energy. He was up and down the pitch. He was scoring goals. He was fully involved. He got a bad injury. I think it was against Roma. Was it in the Champions League? When he was out for nearly a full season. That was the best I've ever seen the Ox play around that time when he scored the cracker, I think, against City at home in the league match. He was phenomenal. But unfortunately for him, his career has been kind of stop-start with little niggling injuries. I think for the Ox, and I think for a couple of Liverpool players, I've said it already about Thiago, I think if we can get these guys to the end of this season, get a full pre-season in to all of our squad, then we'll see a different Liverpool team at the start of next season again. Because when everyone's fit for this current squad, I still would take our squad over Man City's every day of the week.
Yeah, one thing, Ian, that struck me, as well as we played and as great a result as we got against Leipzig in the Champions League, was Leon talked about the great strength and depth of our squad. It wasn't, when I looked at the bench, mate, during the week, there wasn't much there to change a game. We've seen Shaqiri was there, obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain was there, but it's one thing, it's funny, because I used to say we had an overstock of midfielders. We had so many for each type of midfielder that we need, and now when we're looking for that bit of creativity, obviously Oxlade-Chamberlain hasn't hit form yet, coming back from injury. Keita's had his own stop-start Liverpool career. Thiago hasn't been able to influence games because he hasn't had the players around him that he was brought in to play with. I mean, what's been your take on the somewhat lack of creativity at times? Is it just because we've lost Henderson and Fabinho back to the centre-back positions?
Yeah, people need to understand, right, that people talk about creativity from the midfield. The last 2 or 3 seasons, we haven't had that creativity, right? Our midfield has been workhorses industry. Yeah. Basically, we played with a front 5. We played with the 2 wing backs. We played, obviously, with Trent and Robbo and the front 3. Yeah. They're really where our goals assists have been coming from. The middle 3 have been working hard to help pressing, help defending, and getting the ball as quick as we can to the front 3. Yeah. Obviously, when Thiago was brought in, everyone thought, brilliant, we've now got a midfielder to create extra and X, Y, and Z, right? So everyone was thinking, the creativity is there. I believe, obviously, at the moment, he's playing rather deep, but people need to understand that 2 of our best midfielders are playing in our back 4. If you to twist it and we had Virgil and Gomez back, then we're talking the likes of Fabinho, Henderson, right? And only really, with all the rest of the midfielders, we're looking for one more spot. And yet, look how many midfielders we've got. You see what I mean? So then you've got your Ox in there, yeah? You've got Naby.
Jones, Thiago.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So when you look at it that way, we've got so much. Yeah, it's just that it's only come to light because of the fact that those guys are playing in the back, and everyone's talking about this. If you've taken that much engine out the engine room, it's gonna curtail part of your season, and that's what's happened. You get them guys back and they're running around pressing and everything like that, and then all they do is get the ball, playing simple ball, across the field ball back to your Mane and your Salah, and we start scoring goals again. No one's talking about the creativity in the midfield then, yeah? Because at the end of the day, we've got the ball earlier to the guys that make the difference. Our midfield, the last person that probably run our midfield like that was probably Gerrard, if you think about it. That had that was the creativity, the running up and down and all that. But since then, we've just had guys in there that can play football, but at the end of the day, their job is to work hard, right, get that ball back and then pass it to the guys that make, the penetration into the opposition.
I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, gents, for a moment, so bear with me. I want to look a little bit ahead because there's been a lot of talk about a wide forward. We could go from the scale of Kylian Mbappe right down, but the realistic 3 that I've seen mentioned, maybe we can push it to 4. Pedro Neto, obviously Harvey Barnes from Leicester City, Rafinha from Leeds. And I've said for a long time, I'd love to see, I'll come to you first, Leon, on this. I'd love to see Mohamed Salah push through the centre because we've seen the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo, Lionel Messi, other great players reinvent themselves as they've gotten a little bit older. And if there's one thing Mo knows, it's where the back of the net is. So I'd like to see us look towards, again, going from a scale of Mbappe maybe down to Pedro Neto or whoever you have at the highest and lowest of that scale. I'd like to see somebody brought in to just allow Mo that bit of freedom to just concentrate on scoring goals and get somebody else to try and take on fullbacks.
Well, it is an area that I think we do need strengthening in because we have Jota, who has been a huge loss as well. But that really only leaves, in my opinion now, if you're looking at the kind of starters up front, we've got the 3 lads who are fit right now and we've got Jota. Now, the other guys, in my opinion, are squad players, the Origis and the Shaqiris who might get a start here and there, but they're not full-time starters. Now, if you get a problem, i.e. right now we have a Jota, I think it's imperative that we get that type of player in the summer because we do need to freshen it up a little bit. But going back to Ian's point, our midfield was so dominant. When we actually got the ball, the 5 guys knew it was coming to them. They were literally get the ball, pass the ball. But we do need other options, Craig. And Mo sometimes has been found out a little bit on the right-hand side because opposition defenders know what he loves doing is cutting in off the flank. He hasn't really gone on the outside much in the last maybe 5 or 6 games. But even Salah can play anywhere. But it's whether you then sacrifice Bobby to maybe drop a little deeper and play behind Mo in the middle if you got another kind of winger. And look, we could easily do that against, let's say, lesser opposition when we may be struggling to break it down when they just sit back. But Mo Salah, Craig, where he's playing now, he's not doing much wrong. But I do feel we need an extra player in our squad who can challenge the 4 guys who we have now, as in Jota, Bobby, Mo and Mane.
And for you, Eno?
Yes, it'd be brilliant to get one of those players in. I think we spoke about Rafinha on another podcast. I think it was last week. Yes, I'd like to see him. However, going back to what Leon said, it's all right saying put him through the middle, but at what expense? You know, are we going to a 4-2-3-1? You know, because then you want to fit Bobby in there as well. Do you know what I mean? So all those little factors you've got to think about. Because, and like I said, we're talking like this, but we still got Jota to come back as well. You know, that creates that. So, you know, you could perhaps say Jota there and then Salah up front. Yeah, if you're doing the 4-2-3-1. Yeah, you could drop it like that. But listen, we're fans. We always want another player. But, you know, if you're saying to me, you know, the likes of Shaqiri, Origi have gone in the summer, who creates more space for that, then 100%. I'd love an exciting winger type for someone who just takes on players. You know, I remember a couple of years ago we were interested in Traore for Wolves. You know, even I read an article, Heskey said, look, we should be going for Neto and one other that was from Wolves. There was two from Wolves. It was Neto and one other. He said to go.
Adama Traore, was it?
Or Podence, one or the other probably. Daniel Podence.
I mean, we were kind of linked for briefly with Adama Traore, but it never happened, and we got Diogo Jota instead because he was one that just came out of the blue, didn't he? But maybe it is, if Gini leaves, you take away a kind of a centre midfielder there. Hopefully Gini does stay. I mean, I don't know what's happened with his contract. There hasn't been much talk about it, but I think the squad does need a little bit of freshening up, because I think some players will be sold in the summer. I do see the likes of Shaqiri, Origi, dare I even say the Ox? Would he be sold in the summer? There's still a little question mark around the Ox's long-term future. So I think two players maybe just to add to that squad, because I think Kabak will be signed permanently, which will give us 4 centre-backs. So I do feel we do need a couple of more options if players leave the squad.
Gents, before I come to you for your predictions, I wanted, and I haven't spoken to you about this, and you didn't know I was going to bring this up, but I just wanted to get your take on it, because I've been on a bit of a mission lately to talk about the impact of trolling and mental health and what it has on people during a pandemic and people in different walks of life. And we're 3 people sitting here who come from different walks of life completely. Ian, you have a son that's out there playing professional football. Leon, you work for a betting company, and I put myself in front of a camera sitting here talking about football. I just want to let people know that there are human beings on the other end of all of these situations. And we've seen, obviously, a lot of professional footballers lately speak up about racial abuse and hate that they've received. We've just unfortunately past the anniversary of Caroline Flack's unfortunate death again. That came from, you know, mental health issues, as well as a lot of newspaper headlines and stuff, stress that came away. I just want to get maybe a little bit of an input from you guys about how you've dealt with that side of it and how maybe it's affected you at times in your life. And Leon, I know we've spoken about this before, so I'll come to you first to give Ian a chance there to just have a little think. But it is, especially during times like now, Leon, where, you know, there are people are stuck at home, naturally frustrated, naturally pissed off if their team loses, and they want to vent. And nobody has any problem with criticism or critique, but there are human beings at the other end of all of these situations, mate.
Yeah, look, it's very worrying, Craig, in terms of what's going on and how easy it seems to have become, where anybody can go onto social media and say and threaten and abuse and just be not a nice person behind a keyboard and not think that it's going to affect the people who you're talking about. I actually think a lot of the kind of not fault, but a lack of education, I feel, is a huge part in a lot of what's happening. It's just people feel that they can say whatever they want, but you can't. You're not allowed to do that, or you should not be allowed to do that. But how does anybody open up an account without proving who you are or where you live? That if you then go and abuse somebody, whether you racially abuse somebody, whether you threaten somebody, whether you abuse anybody in any way, shape or form, you should not be allowed to do it. And there should be consequences, because you're actually hurting people. And when you start to hurt people, it doesn't have to be physically. mentally can even be worse. And something needs to happen in terms of we need to try and put a stop to this. There has to be education. There has to be a proper program. There has to be a proper campaign. And the people in power, i.e. governments, have to try and do something to try and help people who are getting this abuse. And the reason and the way you can do that is to stop the abuse. It's going to be very difficult. You're always going to have that minority of people who will not who will not listen to any way, shape, or form trying to tell them to stop. That's always going to be out there. But surely, if they're held accountable, it might actually stop them doing it. If there is actually a punishment for what you say to people, then we might get to a better place eventually. It's going to take a long, long time.
Ian, often we hear that, you know, the old adage of just don't give them any time, don't reply to them. But that doesn't mean, mate, that it still doesn't stick to some people and it doesn't hurt. And, you know, we're all human. Sometimes we bite. Sometimes we get angry. But I just want to know, mate, how would you deal with it? How have you advised your son or maybe other youngsters to educate them, as Leon has said, about the pitfalls and the pluses of social media? Because there are a lot of pluses as well. I just want to love a take from you on it as well, mate.
Well, the key word is education that's bandied about quite a lot. I'm quite frank at the end of the day. There's certain generations that personally I think we've got to wipe them. Forget it. There's nothing me, you, or Leon's going to say that's going to change their mind. You know, our age group, a little bit younger, they're gone. That generation's finished. Yeah, you can't educate them. Right? They are who they are. Yeah, it's all about getting it from the root now. The youngsters, right, of today. I don't know if they bring in education at school. They have a new curriculum. You know, a new subject, should they, you know, well-being, I don't know, something. Yeah, it's all about respect and how you treat people and how you talk to people, right? It needs to start from young. It's a social issue, not just a football issue, it's a social issue. And people need to understand that. You know, yes, football's got a good voice, you know, a good platform to be able to air what they need to say. But at the end of the day, I believe it's a cultural thing, you know, where people are who they are, and I don't feel that you should be able to open an account and, as Leon said, not be accountable. So if anything's been said, you know, the powers that be should be able to look at it and go, right, that's Ian Bruce that said that, right? That's Craig that said that, that's Leon that said that, and deal with it appropriately. And when they do find the culprit, they need to deal with them and deal with them severely. Because, you know, a little slap on the wrist is like, oh, well, you know, well, and we'll get away with that. You know, the keyboard warriors at the end of the day. You know, even now when I read stuff now, Rian doesn't even have to play and I'll read things about Rian. And I personally, I look at it, I have to laugh. If you don't laugh, you get wound up by it. You know, I'm thinking to myself, he doesn't even need to kick a ball and everyone's saying what waste of money is. It's like they cannot, you know, they can't help themselves but say something towards him. And sometimes I look at some of the teams that are doing, I'm like, why would you, who supports that team, bother with Rian that plays for Sheffield United? It's like they need, it fuels them. They need to do something. Do you know what? Crack on, do what you need to do. Do you know what I mean? They're going to do it anyway. But for me, the punishments need to be more severe. But the biggest word, and it's said time and time and time again, is education. I don't believe the likes of our age or just below is going to make any difference. You can say whatever you want to them. They're too set in their ways. And unfortunately, that's society. We need to work on the youngsters. Let them realise, you know, it's wrong. Hopefully get in their heads, you know, this is the way you should be doing it. And if not, there'll be penalties. And this is what could happen.
I absolutely love what you said there about the next generation, because they do fill me full of hope. We're all parents sitting here having this conversation, and I've seen some amazing stuff from the younger generation, and I am filled with hope, as Ian has said, that the next generation will remove a lot of this and that we can have more open conversations. And education and dialogue certainly needs to be the way forward, because shouting each other down across social media, it doesn't get across the intricacies of what we want to do. So I appreciate that, gentlemen. I know I put you on the spot a little bit there, but this week I'm really just trying to highlight it because it's something I've always been very passionate about. But now to the good fun, the good stuff, the derby preview, the prediction from Leon and Ian. And look, we've had Jack Gill go all the way, Leon, from a 6-0 in our podcast during the week prediction for the Reds. Jack was full on Rambo mode. He was ready to go. You could see it in his eyes. You, Leon, what are you predicting for the score?
I don't think it's going to be 6-0. I think I'm going to go for Liverpool 2-1. And I think Bobby Firmino, I'd love to see him score. So I think Firmino, just to get on the score sheet. I do think Everton are capable of scoring. I think it's going to be a really close derby, a keenly fought one. I hope there's a couple of tasty 50-50s, all within the rules of the game. We don't want to see any stupid tackles like we saw committed by Everton in the Merseyside derby. But you want a derby to be feisty. But I think we'll just get over the line. I think this is going to be a close game, but I do expect Liverpool to come out on top with all 3 points.
And Eno, what about yourself?
Do you know what? My initial thought was 2-1, but I'm going to stick the neck out here. I'm going for 3-1. I think we it's a bit of payback. Yeah, I think, you know, the guys are going to go out there. They're going to want to do it for VVD, especially. Yeah, we've just come off of a nice win. I think Jurgen's going to fire them up. Don't get it twisted. Everton are going to come with a few tasty tackles, I believe. But I don't know. I just feel we're going to be really, really up for it this time. I'm going for 3-1.
I like it. I'm going to keep my score prediction quiet because the preview prediction's coming out just after this stream. But what I will say is 2 things. One, I've said all week I fancy Curtis Jones for a yellow for a foul on Richarlison. I think that might come along. And the second thing is, I don't think it's any accident that Virgil van Dijk rocked back up to the training facility this week, to Kirby, to the AXA training facility just ahead of the derby, coming back from Dubai. I don't think that that's a coincidence in any way, shape, or form. I think the big man knew what he was doing there to get the troops ready and to just be in and around them ahead of this game. Gents, this has been lots of fun as always. A massive thank you to our sponsors, Boyle Sports, but loads of content coming up. I'm going to take tomorrow off, but I did film an interview with Michael, aka the Irish guy from HITC Sport. That's going to be going out tomorrow. The prediction's going to be coming out later tonight. Myself, Ian, and Leon will be back next week, hopefully. Well, we'll be celebrating a derby victory and looking ahead to the Champions League second leg, which is still a way off, to be honest with you folks. It's still March the 10th. I keep forgetting there's 3 weeks. But again, thank you to Leon. Thank you to Ian. Thank you to you guys for watching. Don't forget to like the video, hit that subscribe button, and we'll talk to you soon. Be well, be safe, and lots of love to all your families. Up the Reds.